Hello, everyone. Quinn, Shannon, and I looked into the effectiveness of virtual reality on cognition for adults post-stroke. We were interested in this topic because stroke is a global health problem that is one of the most common causes for acquired disabilities in adults. There has been much evidence to support the effectiveness of virtual reality in regards to motor improvement. However, little research has evaluated the effectiveness of virtual reality interventions on cognitive outcome. Traditional cognitive treatments for stroke survivors have consisted of paper and pencil methods, which tend to target specific cognitive domains independently from one another. And with the advancements in technology, this has allowed clinicians to expand treatment options, including the use of virtual reality forms in treating clients with cognitive impairments. The databases that were used in our research process include CINAHL, PsycInfo, and Medline. Zotero was a software that was used to help us gather all the relevant information to answer our question. The search terms that were used include virtual reality, or VR, or augmented reality, and stroke or cerebrovascular accident, or CVA, and cognitive with an asterisk to kind of capture everything that is related to cognitive. We included articles that consisted of an efficacy study that addressed the researcher's question. Interventions that intervened with any form of virtual reality. Interventions that addressed any area of cognition, participants that had a history of cerebrovascular accidents, and participants who were adults 10 years of age and older. We excluded participants who were under the age of 18, articles that discussed interventions for individuals with other neurological disorders, interventions that combined multiple cognitive therapies, interventions that targeted motor outcomes alone, and articles that only looked at the impact of unilateral spatial neglect. A total of 11 articles were analyzed in the final synthesis. All articles were level 1 randomized controlled trials. We used a data extraction form to gather the data from each article in functional components. We then used a quality assessment form to assess the strength and trustworthiness of each article. The 11 articles that were used in our research process mentioned 3 different types of virtual reality, which are immersive, non-immersive, and semi-immersive virtual reality. Immersive reality uses a fully immersive 3D environment, typically through the use of a head-mounted display. Non-immersive virtual reality allows users to remain aware of their physical surroundings while working on a television or computer screen. Examples include Nintendo Wii or an average video game. Immersive virtual reality provides users with a partially virtual environment to interact with, and an example of that is a graphical computer using a larger projector screen. And now for the results section, I will hand it over to Shannon.
Thank you, Dula. So when considering our results, we grouped immersive and semi-immersive virtual reality platforms together just based upon the similarities of their outcomes. We grouped those outcomes into 4 different domains, with the first being attention. So what we were able to find with that is that both immersive and semi-immersive virtual reality users showed significant improvements in attention functions when compared to those who completed traditional therapies, those being things such as paper and pencil methods. In regards to immersive virtual reality, participants reported a more engaging and motivating experience, which researchers believe led to those significant improvements being shown. Moving on, we looked at memory. What we were able to find here is that immersive virtual reality users demonstrated significant improvements in memory function when compared to traditional therapy, and this was especially true when participants engaged in simulated activities of daily living. Semi-immersive virtual reality users did show improvements, but not significantly more than those who completed traditional therapy. We then looked at executive function. This provided the most mixed results, and what we found here was that both immersive and semi-immersive virtual reality can improve executive functioning. However, we did find that immersive virtual reality interventions that were graded to the capabilities of the user led to the most significant improvements. Finally, we did have one study that introduced a newer idea about treating multiple cognitive domains simultaneously. This is referred to as conjunctive treatment, and what the study looked at was that attention, memory, and executive functioning have a correlative relationship in those domains, and that immersive virtual reality has the ability to treat these multiple domains collectively at once. So next we looked at non-immersive virtual reality platforms. And this was a little bit more broad. So how we grouped this was we did non-immersive versus no treatment and non-immersive versus traditional therapy. In regards to no treatment, We found that non-immersive virtual reality users demonstrated significant improvements in overall cognitive function when compared to those who did not receive any treatment at all. In addition to this, we also found that non-immersive virtual reality can be effective in treating multiple cognitive domains at once when compared to no treatment, as we sort of talked about previously. Next, we talked about non-immersive versus traditional therapy. What we found here is that both experimental and control groups showed significant improvements in global cognitive functioning, and this showed us that non-immersive virtual reality can be just as effective as conventional occupational therapy. And with that, I will pass it over to Quinn.
Thank you. Okay, so for our limitations, we noticed after doing the quality assessment form that a lot of our articles lacked blinding, and they were all overall small sample sizes. The largest sample was 40 participants. Most of the articles did not specifically say what type of intervention they were having, whether it be immersive, semi-immersive, or non-immersive, so the researchers had to categorize them into their given virtual reality platforms ourselves. And then it was also difficult to generalize to populations that have comorbidities because of the inclusion and exclusion criteria that a lot of the articles used. For clinical implications, clinicians can use immersive or semi-immersive virtual reality to address multiple cognitive domains simultaneously. Immersive virtual reality was shown to be the most effective, specifically with attention and memory impairments, most likely due to the more engaging and motivating experience for the user. Practitioners should be aware of the desired clinical outcomes and the motivation of the client when they're trying to decide what platform to use, specifically non-immersive, being that it was shown to be just as effective as traditional therapy. Also, virtual reality platforms can mimic real-life activities of daily living, which might not otherwise be able to be performed due to what's available at the clinic or it being too dangerous or difficult for the client. Future research can expand on different neurological conditions as well as those who have those comorbidities. There could also be an expansion of research on the specific time frame after stroke that would be the most beneficial to use virtual reality for cognitive deficits. We would also like to thank Dr. Foster for all of her help and guidance throughout this whole research process. And next, we're going to go to our popular source. So for our popular source, we decided to make a flyer, and we were targeting clinicians, specifically OTs, being that our results showed a specific intervention and how and when to use it. So we started off with a little intro paragraph on the prevalence and the effects that stroke can have on an individual, and then we went into how it compares to traditional therapy, like paper and pencil methods. On the left-hand side, we defined immersive, non-immersive, and semi-immersive virtual reality. That way clinicians knew specifically what we were talking about when we spoke on each type. And then we went into the considerations and implications as well as the benefits of virtual reality that OTs and other practitioners can use when they're using this intervention for their clients.
Yeah, so to add to what was mentioned, we were hoping that this would target clinicians who have been in the field for a long time. They might not be too familiar with virtual reality and how effective and what it can do for the client. And it also can be used for new clinicians who might just jump on board with the idea because it does sound cool. So it'll inform them, guide their thinking on, what the difference between each virtual reality, what's effective, what's not. And that sometimes for a certain client doing conventional occupational therapy will be just as effective as virtual reality. And this is where we end it, and we look forward to answering all of your questions. So please feel free to ask questions in the discussion board, and thank you guys.
Yep. Thank you so much, everybody.